I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. You know, we have a really interesting show today. And, you know, because when it was first brought to me, I'm like, are those in Kentucky?
I know. It was a number of years ago I first saw one, and it was just crawling across the road. I was in Western Kentucky, and I was really shocked. I'm like,
Right.
What is that? Yeah. But today, folks, we're glad to have you all with us, and we're going to learn about some work that's going on here in our department. Dr. Matt Springer and one of his graduate students, Olivia O'Hearn, is going to be talking about armadillos in Kentucky and kind of what's going on with that situation. I think I'm really excited, looking forward to that.
Different kind of topic that I wasn't expecting when Dr. Springer brought it to me, and I was like, okay.
And then we've got our very own Franny Preston going to be talking about invasive plants, but with a twist, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And this one, we're going to learn kind of how to eat them.
Yeah,
Right?
I know.
Or which ones
that doesn't mean plant them so you can eat them.
Exactly. It's a control mechanism.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So we'll learn about that. We'll be glad to have Franny on. But folks, if you all have questions for our presenters or you have any comments, you can hit us up in the chat function if you're on Zoom or if you're on YouTube or you're a podcast listener. Please use our email address at forestry.extension@uky.edu. We can respond that way. But we're delighted to have you all with us. Definitely. Really looking forward to the show. Yeah. Got a brand new guest. I know. It's always exciting when we get a first timer.
It really is. And so let's go ahead and get started. So Olivia, if you want to turn your camera on.
Welcome.
Hi, welcome to the show. It's exciting to have you on.
Thank you all so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Glad to have you here. This is a really interesting topic that you're going to be talking about. I guess what sparked your interest in armadillos?
Right.
Well, actually, Dr. John Cox is the one who had brought it up to me. Okay. And I said the same thing as you guys when he brought it up. I was like, those are here? So he had brought it up to me, and we've just been running with it ever since.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to your presentation. We really appreciate you being with us today.
Yes, definitely. All right, let me go ahead and share the screen. So yeah, like they were saying, I'm talking about how the nine-banded armadillo has been invading Kentucky. So just some background knowledge about the armadillos. It was initially introduced to Texas in the 1850s, and it is from Central America. That's where it's native to. And since then, it's just been spreading all throughout the southeastern United States. And so here on this slide, I've got a map that actually shows some of the colonization estimates of it so far in the southeastern US. And that's just by means of natural dispersal, but there were also some intentional and accidental introductions into areas such as Florida. So overall, I mean, there's about 15 states where this species has established itself, but there's been sightings in even more than that. If you look at the map, I mean, they're moving quick. So just some fun facts about these little guys. They are surprisingly good swimmers. They actually will walk across the bottom of like water beds and things like that. And they use that as a means of dispersal. And they can even hold their breath for up to 6 minutes. So there's a cute little picture of one swimming. They also primarily eat bugs and grubs that they find in the ground near water. So that's why they're often found near waterways and such. They actually have a really good sense of smell. That's how they actually find a lot of their food, and it kind of makes up for their poor eyesight. So this armadillo actually isn't one of the ones that can roll up into a ball, unfortunately. I know it'd be kind of cute, but only 2 species out of the roughly 20 of armadillos can do that. And just some more fun facts. When they're startled or scared, they actually jump very high up in the air. It can be up to 5 feet. So that's why they're kind of the enemies of cars. They're not very good with those ones, because as soon as one comes by, they get startled and jump up under the car bed, and it doesn't end well for them. This species of armadillo actually also almost always has quadruplets in their litters, which is a very interesting thing. The reason why that is, I don't think that anybody's really too sure, but they're all always identical quadruplets. So into what I'm doing actually, this is actually one of the only species, aside from human beings, that are known to carry Hansen's disease, which is better just known as leprosy. Some of the only other animals that are, known carriers of it are going to be the red squirrel and some species of monkeys. And getting into this topic a little bit more, so leprosy is actually caused by a mycobacterium infection. It's either going to be M. leprae or M. lepromatosis. So leprosy typically takes years to manifest into something, but left untreated, it can result in a lot of permanent damage to people, just in terms of nerve damage, disfigurement, blindness, skin ulcers. So I've got a few pictures there just to show you what it looks like in an armadillo and on a person. And so why is this important? So leprosy isn't something that's easily transmissible, and it is curable. But just given that this species is expanding and colonizing these areas so quickly, it's definitely worthwhile to assess what implications this could have on public health. So leprosy itself is actually transmitted by close and frequent contact with untreated people or animals, just through airborne droplets from the mouth or nose, just respiratory functions. So it's kind of hard to get, but if you're around a lot of armadillos or something, it's definitely something to think about. So with the expanding range, like I was saying, more people are bound to come into contact with these armadillos. So it's kind of just something to look into in terms of a public health risk. And definitely don't go kissing armadillos like Johnny Knoxville here. But yeah. So, and the reason why we think that people are going to start running into these guys a lot more, just aside from them being on the side of the road and such, they do typically burrow a lot. So an armadillo can have anywhere from like 5 to 12 burrows at a time just as shelter. But on top of that, it's always digging holes so it can, get those bugs and grubs up out of the ground to eat. So a lot of people kind of find them a nuisance because they're digging up their lawns. They're, damaging, foundations and stuff near their houses from all this digging. Golf courses, everything like that. I mean, people do kind of tend to find them a nuisance for all their digging. So because of this, a lot of people, especially in like the southern United States, have already started trapping armadillos. And so that means people are interacting more with them. So it definitely needs to be assessed whether they have leprosy or not, because if people are coming into contact with them so much, then, that could definitely lead to something. So talking about what my project is, we're investigating the extent of the 9-banded armadillo colonization in Kentucky, but we're also looking to the extent of how prevalent leprosy-causing bacteria species are within this particular species. So we're hoping to better understand and quantify the presence of the 9-banded armadillo species and leprosy in Kentucky. So how can you all help? Keep an eye out for armadillos for me. They are often killed by cars. Like I said, they tend to jump really high, so they get startled by a car and then they end up being roadkill because of that. They do find their way into residential areas a lot. And, you can find them on trail cameras, or sometimes people have reported seeing them living in like their backyards and things like that. So, yeah, if you all see any, definitely reach out. And I've got some contact information here. So if you do see one, try to take a picture of it and note the location for me. And you can send that information to KentuckyArmadillo@gmail.com. And we do also have an iNaturalist project board. And the project name on that is going to be 9-banded armadillos in Kentucky. And that's just in case anyone prefers to, report their sightings through that platform. We have already found quite a few through that one. But yeah, no, so that is what I've got for you guys.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. We greatly appreciate it. I'm really curious. So I saw that I was like 9. Okay, 9. So I was like 1, 2. I was counting. Is that why it's called 9? 9-band.
So actually, a 9-banded armadillo can have anywhere from 7 to 12 bands. And I know I was a little bit misled by that too. And they do have some other species that are like, a 3-banded armadillo, but it tends to vary just a little bit actually.
Okay. That is very, I don't know.
It's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Unoriginal name,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
I had to build a relationship though with leprosy on that. That was
Right,
very
exactly.
interesting.
So I thought Dr. Matt Springer was on here just a second ago. Yeah, hey Matt, I was trying to change your name a second ago. But if you tell us a little bit about, like, if you know this, and maybe between you and Livia, why are they moving up? I mean, what's the whole what's the whole thing with that?
Sure. Olivia, I don't know if you want to answer that. You probably have a pretty good grasp on that one. This is
Yes,
your project,
definitely.
so you're capable of taking that one for sure.
Definitely. So, these armadillos actually, they just tend to move a lot as is. So I mean, I want to say they move anywhere from like 500 meters a day plus. But so the reason why they've been moving north, from what I've read in my research, is because of global warming, actually. So their limiting factor on where they can live is how cold it gets and the ground coverage, because that's how they, make their shelter. That's where they get their food. So if it's getting too cold, the ground's getting too hard, they can't get any food, they can't find a shelter or anything. And so just with, warming climate in general, they've just been able to move farther north than ever before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you see them moving even further up?
Well, in some of the predictions that I've read, they've said that they could go as far north as Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
Which
Whoa.
right, right, which is really far. And I mean, on that map that I was showing, they've got sightings as far north now as Nebraska and middle of Illinois, which is pretty far.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow, that is pretty.
Yeah, that is concerning.
Yes.
Olivia, I had a question. I was wondering, other than maybe those things jumping up and being at your face when they're scared and scaring us to death when that happens, what would happen? I mean, what's the impact? I saw those burrows you had, or the pictures where they were burrowing into the ground. Are there any other kind of impacts to our trees or natural resources that we need to be concerned about? I think about like the wild pig, right, and some of the impact they have from from on the plants and
Right.
stuff. So I was just kind of curious.
From what I've read, there hasn't been too much other research done on any other implications. I know I read a research article done out of Illinois or Indiana, I think, on how they'd affect crops. But from that article, the only thing that I got was that they didn't really bother them too much. They're good pest control. I mean, they do eat a lot of bugs and things like that. It's more so their biggest concern is just the hole digging.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So you're wrapping this up as part of a graduate project, and I guess you are actually working with Dr. Cox as your major advisor. Awesome.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's correct. So we're not wrapping it up. We're actually kind of just getting started on it. We just started collecting earlier this month. So we're supposed to be doing this for about a year, roughly.
Okay. Well, good deal. Well, we've got a lot of county extension agents on this, and some of them were asking for like little Facebook posts or things that they could use to kind of share, that you're trying to collect this data. So maybe we can get up with you and get some stuff out to the county extension offices.
That would be great. Yes, definitely.
Good deal. Well, Olivia, we appreciate you. Good luck with your project. I'm here at UK, and we look forward to seeing the results of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you guys.
We'll have you on again when you get a little further down into the project and have a little more information.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah, especially if you got some cool findings, because I think there's a lot of interest in this, right? We talk to a lot of people across the state, and it's something that gets brought up more and more frequently. So,
right. And I mean, just me posting it on Facebook, there was a lot of people that were like, well, here's a picture of one that I hit, or here's a picture of, the one that I saw, and they are definitely here. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Olivia.
Yes, thank you all so much for having me.
All right, good deal. All right, so we're going to talk about some other kind of pests, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. But well, I was going to say, I guess you could eat those too, but I was going to say these you can eat, but I don't know if you want to eat an armadillo.
No, let's avoid that.
Yeah, so.
But we got Franny with us.
Yeah, she's back. Thank you, Franny, for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. And you're going to start talking about invasive plants we can eat.
That's correct. None of these will give you leprosy, so they should be safe.
That's always a really good thing.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yes.
So as Renee and Billy said, I am Franny Preston. I'm the Invasive Species Outreach Coordinator here at UK. And today I'm going to be talking about invasive plants that you can eat. Just want to give a couple of disclaimers before I begin this presentation. First of all, there are some invasive plants that have some lookalikes that could be toxic. And so before you eat any invasive plant, just as if you were foraging for any other food, you want to make sure that you know 100% what it is. And you can figure out what it is with some field guides, or I like to use iNaturalist. That's a pretty reliable resource. Or if you need to ask your county agent, ask them as well. And also, if you maybe have some allergies to similar plants, make sure that you just introduce these very slowly into your diet. So make sure you know what the plant is before you eat it, and then just carefully start eating them. Another just thing I want to bring up is if these plants are on your property, please eat them, go for it. If they're on your neighbor's property or maybe in a natural area or a park, you want to make sure you ask permission. For one, you don't just want to be stealing plants out of your neighbor's yard, but also herbicides are used to mitigate invasive plants. They're a really effective control method. However, we don't want to be eating plants that have just been sprayed with herbicides. So especially if you are in a natural area where they're probably using herbicides to control invasive plants, you want to make sure that you ask the landowner or the park manager, the person in charge of the property, just to make sure that the plants are safe to eat, but also that you have permission to take them as well. But because invasive plants are such a big problem, I almost guarantee you that everyone will be happy with you taking them off the property. All right, and just to make sure we're all on the same page with invasive plants, when I'm talking about invasive plants, I'm talking about plants that are non-native, so they're not from Kentucky. And these are plants that are causing some sort of harm. They might be causing harm to humans, or they might be causing harm to the environment, or both. So why do we want to eat these invasive plants, and why do we want to get rid of them on the landscape? Well, like I said, they're causing problems either to humans or the environment, or most of the time both. They're causing harm by decreasing biodiversity, which means they're reducing the amount of native plants and animals in the ecosystem and upsetting the entire ecosystem that way. And for us, they're causing economic or lifestyle impacts as well. So these are all plants that are causing harm, and they're all throughout the state. So along with that, while these plants can be really great to eat and we can use them, and in that way they're benefiting us, again, they are causing problems and they're causing harm. And so once we take the part of the plant that we want to eat, we want to get rid of them on the landscape. So if they're in your backyard and you harvest whatever you'd like from them, go ahead and treat them if possible. If they're plants that can be removed manually by hand, just make sure that you take away and remove the entire plant. Or if you're using herbicides to treat them, just again, make sure that you harvest what you want to eat and then treat them with herbicides just for your own safety. All right, so we'll go ahead and get into a few examples of invasive plants that you can eat. And all of these invasive plants can be found in Kentucky. Some of them are more prevalent in certain regions, but they're all here in the state. We'll start out with garlic mustard. And garlic mustard is found all throughout the state. As its name implies, it has leaves that have a garlicky or mustard-like taste. And this is best to harvest while it's young. Here in Kentucky, that's early to mid-spring typically. So we might be a little bit past the point where you can actually use garlic mustard leaves. However, I did read that you can boil the leaves down to make them a little bit more tender and less bitter now that they're older. So again, for the leaves, you can use them for pesto, soups, salads. You can dry them and grind them up and use them as an herb, or you can even saute them. The roots can be pickled, which is really great. And especially, this is one of these plants that can be hand pulled, but you want to remove the entire plant. So that way you can use the roots too. And then the seeds can be ground and used as ground mustard. So for each of these species, I'm going to just give a little bit of a description of them and then post a recipe on here. All of these recipes I got online from different websites. So you feel free to take a picture of them now And I've got the website listed on there, but for those of you who are just listening, I'll just read the website name so you can look it up later. So this is a recipe for garlic mustard pesto, and it's found on foragerchef.com. And this is one of the recipes that I hear people most commonly using with garlic mustard. All right, next up we've got wineberry, and this is an invasive raspberry. And I've heard from a lot of people that this is the tastiest invasive that we have here in the state. And the berries can be harvested in June or July. Think about maybe if you grow raspberries or blackberries, that's when their fruit's coming out as well. And their fruit can be used raw in preserves or in pies. And any recipe that you are using raspberries or blackberries for, you can substitute wineberries instead. So you can see this is a newer one that's just starting to be reported throughout each region of the state, but it is here in Fayette County, and it unfortunately is growing. So here's a recipe great for summertime, and as it's getting really hot, like it has been the past few weeks, this is wineberry sorbet. And I got this recipe off of wildthistlekitchen.com. And again, since this is a raspberry, if you can only find a few wineberries, which is a good thing, you can just harvest those and then supplement the recipe with raspberries or blackberries instead. Next up, we've got Japanese knotweed, and this is a plant that really likes to grow along ditches and along waterways, and it's also best to harvest it while it's young. So knotweed has been compared to rhubarb in taste and texture, and you might even hear it be called rhubarb sometimes because of this. So the shoots of knotweed can be eaten, and they can be made into jellies, pies, breads. They can be pickled, made into curries or other creamy sauces, just like you would use rhubarb. And here's a recipe for fermented knotweed pickles, which I thought was really exciting. And this one was also found on foragerchef.com. Next up, we've got autumn olive, and as the name implies, this is an invasive plant that's fruit is going to be best in the late fall or early winter. Maybe if you've had one frost yet, that might make the berries a little bit more tender. And the fruit can be used just eaten raw. It does have a seed inside that is edible, but most people just like to spit it out. But again, it can be eaten raw, made into preserves, pies, or even ketchup, which I thought was really interesting. So here's a recipe for autumn olive ketchup. And I got this recipe off of learningandyearning.com. So if anyone tries this out, you should let me know, because this sounds really interesting and a really great recipe for the fall. Next up, we've got the invasive plant that most of us have probably eaten at some point in our life. We've got Japanese honeysuckle. So Japanese honeysuckle, if you haven't before, you can just take this little stem off the end of the flower and eat the honey coming out of the end, which I'm sure we all did as kids. And they are blooming right now. So the flowers can be used late spring into the summer, and they'll bloom for a while. And the flowers can be used for tea, lemonade, or jelly. And I just want to specify there are different types of honeysuckle. We have native honeysuckles and we have different invasive honeysuckles as well. And some of the invasive honeysuckles are not as edible or not edible at all. So you want to make sure that you are using the invasive vining honeysuckle, which is the Japanese honeysuckle. So if you see these blooms and it's in a vine form, you're good to go. And again, you can make tea out of it. And I got this recipe off of unrulygardening.com. But it's pretty simple. You can either dry the flowers and use them for tea later, or you can use them fresh. And a fun fact about this is apparently after you make the tea, you can actually use it to soothe poison ivy rashes as well, which can really come in handy. And then we've got kudzu. So especially if you are in the southeastern or southwestern parts of the state, you know that kudzu is everywhere. You're driving down the road, you can see it covering everything. Unfortunately, it's causing a lot of problems. But thankfully, we can use it for eating as well. Goats really like to eat this too, so we know it's good. So the flowers are grape-like, or they smell like grapes, and they're purple, and they can be used in late summer, and they can be used to make jelly, candy, or syrup. The leaves can be treated as spinach or kale, and they can be used raw. You can bake them, you can cook them or fry them. The shoots should be used while young and tender, and they can be eaten raw. They can be steamed or even stir fried. And then the roots, particularly the larger and older roots, they can be dug up, they can be dried and even made into flour and used for other starchy recipes. And here is a nice breakfast recipe. So we've got kudzu quiche, and this recipe is off of bakespace.com. I'm definitely going to try this one soon. All right, so I appreciate you all learning about invasive plants that you can eat today. So again, I just want to recap and just say that although these plants can be beneficial to eat, we want to eat them and then remove them from the environment because they are causing a lot of issues. So if you all have any questions, feel free to ask now or shoot me an email. And also, if you have any recipes that you yourself have made with an invasive plant species, either one that was on here or not, please send me an email and I'd love to include it as resources for other people.
Well, thank you. We greatly appreciate that. Franny, the invasives, I never knew that you could make so much. You know, I'm always like, let's get rid of them, let's get rid of them. But I never thought they actually might have a benefit. Not that you want to plant them, remember, but they're all over. You can find them someplace.
Yes, unfortunately, they're,
Yeah.
So
So
you got them, so you might as well use them.
exactly right. Take advantage of the resources you have at your
What do
disposal.
you say,
So-
make lemonade out of lemons?
There you go.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. But I do appreciate your comments about, we don't want to be kind of promoting these, or, we want to make sure that we're kind of controlling them best we can.
Right,
because
definitely.
they can be problematic.
Right,
really
they can be. And speaking of control, if you don't want to dig up to eat something that you have on your property, Franny, is there like an overall good suggestion on how to control some of the invasives that you have in your woods? I mean, what can you do other than hand pulling? Are there other
Yeah,
things?
that's a good question. And hand pulling might be a good option if there's just a small infestation or it's dependent on the species too. But it's really going to depend on what the species is. If it's a large scale infestation, herbicides are typically the best to use. If you're interested in learning more and becoming certified to use herbicides, you can get your pesticide applicator license on through the Kentucky Department of Agriculture. That'll give you some good training as well. Otherwise, there are just some great resources online, even through UK. The Kentucky Woodlands magazine's got some good tips about treating different species. Some of them are manual methods, so some of them might be mowing them down frequently, like every 2 weeks during the year. Some of them might be using a chainsaw, but it just kind of depends on the species.
Well, I think that's a really great point. You can't really treat something unless you know what you're treating, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
understanding what species you've got is a great starting point. And Franny, I'll remind our viewers out there and our listeners that we have natural resource professionals that can come out and meet with you on your property if you're a woodland owner. The Kentucky Division of Forestry, Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, consultant foresters,
Yeah.
technicians from the Natural Resources Conservation Service. There's a lot of people that have some knowledge and they can help you navigate controlling invasive plants on your own property. And Renee, there's nothing better than getting that tailored advice for your space, your property, your situation, right? Because
Right.
everybody's in a little bit of a different place in that regard.
Right, because you may have a bush honeysuckle problem and someone might have a winter creeper problem, and it's totally
And some
different.
may have both.
And some-
unfortunately.
Yeah, most people probably do. And that I understand not maybe wanting to hand pull, because I was like, I have a winter creeper that shoots up all the time and I pull it, but it comes back. And I didn't catch it this year. And then it started digging into other places, and it is actually harder to, when I got it, when it was just shooting up,
Yeah.
I'd have been fine. But now I'm really having trouble getting it up because it is like dug in. And now I understand what we're saying is like, get it early if you can.
Yeah, don't let a small problem become a big one.
One, exactly. But it was creeping under weeds. It has the correct name. Yeah. So
All right. Well, Franny, we appreciate you so much. Any other kind of closing comments about invasives or some of the work that you're doing? I know you've been doing a lot of work trying to kind of get people aware of the invasive situation and how we can go about treating them. And we certainly appreciate your efforts in that regard.
No, I appreciate it as well. And again, if you had any recipes you'd like to share, I want to put together some resources for people. So send them my way.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing the Franny cookbook on it.
Yeah, I know, right? That's the thought. Start selling that.
There you go.
Cookbook.
All right. Well, Franny, thanks again. Do
again.
appreciate you very much and all you do. All right. All right. So Renee, really cool show.
Yes,
We got to learn about armadillos and what's
Right.
happening with that. Well, at least they're starting to learn what's going on.
Exactly. And we'll have them back to talk a little bit more once they find out more information about, armadillos. But, it's just that they plop like that. I know we don't have that, but that was kind of cute.
yeah.
Funny, but cute, so.
We don't need leprosy.
No, we do not.
So,
No.
All right, but big thanks to Olivia O'Hearn for giving that presentation, and certainly we appreciate Franny Preston for her work on invasives and how we can control them as well as eat them.
Eat them, yeah, exactly. It was just thinking, it popped in my mind, and I do know that we talked about this last week, but you could also learn a little bit more by coming to the short course
No
if you
doubt.
wanted to.
Yeah, if we have woodland owners or county extension agents out there who really want to get a kind of a crash course in woodland and wildlife management here in Kentucky, we've got an opportunity for you,
We
right?
really do.
Coming up here in just a few weeks, our online sessions of our 2024 Kentucky Woodland Owner Short Course are going to be kicking off. That starts June 11th. But I will say that we are, while we're doing those webinars over a 3-week period on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we are recording those as well. So, if, the time doesn't work for you all, if the live time doesn't work, you'll be able to get that recording once you've registered for the program.
Right.
And then we have 2 amazing field sessions. We're going to have all of our partners that are part of the Woodland Owner Short Course are going to be with us. We're going to, on July 13th, we're going to be at Robinson Forest, and they're our very own UK Robinson Forest.
So if you've ever wanted to see Robinson,
yes, what a great opportunity,
Yeah.
and it's so beautiful. And we are including a trip to the fire tower with
There
that
you
one, so that'll be really interesting. And then we're going to be in Hart County on August 10th for Roundstone Native Seed, and they are some amazing conservationists out there. They've got a great, huge property they've been managing for a long time. So we're going to get a chance to get out there and see some of the work that they've done, not only in their woods, but also with all their native warm season grasses and all of those kind of prairie plants. They have some of the best expertise at that place. They've been working with researchers from throughout the region on how to kind of propagate these different species of plants. So if you ever wanted to learn more about that stuff, you don't want to miss that one. So I encourage you all to sign up for the Woodland Owner Short Course. If you can't go to the field sessions, you can still sign up just for the online sessions. So we have a really reduced rate for that. But if you do make it out to the field sessions, we'll feed you a great lunch and we'll give you some good resources and we'll help you make some connections to people that can help you manage your property.
Definitely. So make sure you sign up for that, and you get to see us in person.
Yeah, we'll be there.
We'll be there. Exactly.
Along with all of
our
our friends and
our
partners.
team.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
it does take a village to put that thing on. So.
Yeah, just like most of the people that you see on From the Woods today,
Are
if they're
part of
if it's part of us, as far as extension goes, they'll be there as well.
no
So
doubt. So
it's a good deal.
So join us this summer, right? Either online or in the woods at the 2024 Kentucky Woodland Owner Short Course.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So that's all we have for today. We greatly appreciate you all joining us. And I guess we will see you all next week.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
From the woods today.